Hi, I'm Jessica Short and this is Just Causes. We're a program about advocates, activists and organisations committed to positive change. Very few campaigners have royal approval for the work they do, but the RSPCA is the exception. Its latest fight is to improve conditions for chickens in our egg industry. The RSPCA has been fighting to prevent the mistreatment of animals for more than 130 years. The organisation advocates for chickens to roam freely and not be subjected to live in cages. The RSPCA's top priority is to make sure chickens are treated ethically by farmers.
Well, layer hens fall into three different categories. So there's caged eggs, cage produced eggs, then there's free range, and there's also barn laid. Currently, the RSPCA is not satisfied with the egg industry's standards.
The RSPCA has been campaigning hard for the commercial egg producers to change their practices.
They think it's okay to have 20,000 caged eggs per hectare. Our maximum standard is 1,500 or 2,500 if they're on a rotational basis. So the problem we've got is fighting against commercial interests, against people that have been doing this for a long time.
The Barnett government won't do anything about regulating egg production in Western Australia. They've said that.
Shadow Agriculture Minister Paul Papalia fears consumers are being duped.
What we're saying is that most consumers, when they buy a free-range egg, they think the hen's wandering around in a sort of, people don't think in terms of number of hens per hectare, but I'm sure that your average consumer doesn't think that 20,000 or even as high as 40 or 50,000 hens per hectare is free range. That's not what they think they're buying.
The majority of Australians are now learning about the plight of hens in cages in particular, and they're less accepting of it. There are other issues that we've got problems with in terms of labelling of foods, and we want more stringent controls on government particularly about that, and it's constantly about us negotiating with industry, with government, with the private sector and with the general public, and educating them as to what we want and why we want it and why this is for the betterment of society as a whole.
Free-range chickens like these have a higher quality of life compared to caged egg hens.
Yeah, well, consumers want to know that eggs are produced in accordance with the Animal Welfare Act. The Australian Egg Corporation has their Quality Assurance Program, and this is underpinned by, the rules of Egg Standards Australia.
John Simpkins believes the standards of caged hens is being met and quality is not being compromised.
But cage has some inherent advantages, and I think the free range issue is driven by a minority of people that perceive cages as being cruel or whatever, but the modern cage, is very, very good to the animals. There's lots of advantages for the cage system. It's the cheapest form of production, and in today's world, where there's a growing shortage of food.
But we at the RSPCA in particular, and I think the general public, don't like to see the types of conditions we've seen in the past, where our inspectors have gone down to barn-laid farms. It's not all farms, of course, but some of them, they're pecking each other, they're losing feathers. We have problems with issues such as removal of beaks and things like that. We want animals to exhibit their natural behaviours, and if that means dust bathing and things like that, then that's what we want to see happen. I think there's a popular saying by Gandhi who said that the maturity of a nation can be judged on how it treats its animals, and I think Australia really needs to be seen as a world leader, such as in other countries such as the UK and the United States, because when you have people that mistreat animals or think animals are nothing to worry about, then you get into broader problems with how they treat their people and things like that.
With me are Tim Main from the RSPCA and free-range egg producer Tom Lamond. Welcome to Just Causes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Tim, I'm going to start off with you. If egg farming standards are set too high, won't producers go out of business?
We don't think egg producers are going to go out of business. We think there's more of a trend. We're seeing something like more than 2/3 of Australians now preferring to buy free range and barn laid, and I think the egg industry themselves recently has come out in the media and they're
putting in new rules and regulations for free-range egg production. RSPCA will be keeping a close eye on that. We have issues with things like stocking density and other ways in which the hens themselves are reared, so we'll be watching that very closely.
I'm going over to you now, Tom. We know you're a free-range chicken farmer, but from your insight, can farmers compromise?
They can to a certain degree, but compromising, you know, we're going to have to change our systems and ways of operation, which incurs a cost on us, and we can't really push that cost over to the producers, even though they are willing to pay a small premium for free-range eggs. So there is a little room to move, but we don't like to move too drastically, too quickly, because the benefits will impact negatively on ourselves as producers.
Do you agree with that, Tim?
Obviously, the RSPCA is realistic in that egg producers have to make a living. We've got no problem with that. The RSPCA believes that all animals, including layer hens, should be able to exhibit natural behaviours. You know, they've got wings, they need to stretch them, dust baths, that sort of thing. We've met with the egg producers, both caged and free range, and we've heard both sides of the stories. But obviously, we want people as far as possible, humanly possible, to stick to our standards.
Tom, how did the chickens cope with the current standards?
Well, in the free-range style of production, they tend to cope fairly well because they're sort of out in open sort of paddocks and are able to cruise around and cluck around, stretch their legs, and you know, like they're in the natural environment. But on the battery hen side of things, they are stuck in quite small cages from the get-go, which it does provide an efficient form of producing eggs, but the population, the public, has sort of moved away from that as they see it sort of unnatural, and with the move to organic foods and whatnot, the free range idea is becoming more and more popular. So it's probably more of a market shift that we've done, that producers are sort of moving towards.
Do you agree with that, Tim?
Yeah, look, I do, in that our statistics are showing more and more people are concerned about where their food's coming from, and that's after the obvious ones of price and nutrition. The third biggest concern for consumers is how their food's produced, particularly when it comes to animals being involved. They want to know that, you know, there are humane standards involved in production and with things like meat and eggs.
How often would the RSPCA go out and check size?
The RSPCA, as part of its duty, it's proactive. Our inspectors go out and we check on things like sale yards, pet shops, and also you know, battery hen production. Often the egg corporations themselves have invited us out there. We've recently had an invitation to go out, so a lot of the staff members and inspectors are going to go out and have a look for ourselves.
Do you get many calls and complaints regarding battery farming? We
do, and we have investigated and subsequently prosecuted some farmers. I suppose I use the term farmers loosely. No offence to my colleague here. I'm sure he's doing the right thing, but I mean, a lot of what you find is a lot of those people are in rural areas that are, I suppose, ringing through a cruelty complaint because they don't want to see that person in production. They don't consider them a farmer. They're not setting the standard as to other farmers, you know, the way they want to see it. Okay,
well, Tim Mayne and Tom Lamond, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for being a part of Just Causes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To end the program, a story about an extraordinary young woman called Holly Ransom. At just 22, Holly's humanitarian achievements are amazing, and she's set to be the youngest Rotary Club president in the world. For Just Causes, I'm Jessica Short.
I'm Holly Ransom. I'm 22 years old. I'm in my 5th year of a law economics degree at UWA. I'm also the incoming president of the state's biggest Rotary Club, the Rotary Club of Crawley. I was lucky enough to discover my passion really early. Well, actually, when I was 10 years old. I was shopping in a bookstore with my mum in the city, and I got exceptionally bored following her around the store. So I wandered out the front onto Forest Place, and there were people buzzing everywhere in front of me. But something caught my eye up to the left on the sidewalk. There was a guy that was sitting there with his hat upturned that was begging for money. And I've always been a pretty extroverted kid, so I wandered over to him and said, "What you doing?" And he looked up at me with amusement and intrigue and said, "I'm trying to earn enough to get a feed." And so I looked down at his hat, and there was $4.20 sitting in his hat. But that night, as I lay in bed and it bucketed with rain, it was middle of winter in Perth, all I could think about was, how come by the lottery of birth I've got a roof over my head. I've got a stomach full of food. I'm safe, I'm secure. And the guy that I met on the side of the street today isn't. And if he's in a circumstance like that, there are probably plenty of other people who are similar to him, find themselves in unfortunate circumstances like that day in, day out.
Holly's an inspiration to everybody she meets, everybody she touches, whatever she does. She's an amazing person, and I think we tend to forget that Holly's only 22 years of age. She's brought her own individual dynamic nature, her own passion, and that's a passion for helping people. The opportunity to mix with other people of a similar age, and yet very comfortably mix with people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And she does it so beautifully. She has this rare gift of being so eloquent at such a young age, and to talk and delineate about so many different topics and subjects. Her passion, as we all know, is about leadership and about helping others. And she's proven it. A 22-year-old who will have been in the Rotary movement for just 1 year, not only to become president of a very successful Rotary Club, but to be invited to speak at various conferences that Rotary have, so people can hear her story about our story.
So the cause of Rotary of Crawley is twofold. Firstly, we're all about community service and working worldwide, wherever there is need and disadvantage, to help those less fortunate, through fundraising, through on-the-ground projects, through infrastructure. Wherever there's a need, we work on how we can best address it. The second and quite unique cause of Rotary of Crawley is getting people engaged in this worldwide movement for good that wouldn't previously or otherwise be getting involved in Rotary clubs. This club is unique in the world. I mean, Rotary's got 1.2 million members internationally. Only 2% of those are under the age of 30, only 12% are women. Our club's 2 years old, it's the biggest in WA already, we're 110 members strong, got 30% of our membership under 30, and we've got 50% women, 50% men. So it's a really exciting, unique club that's attracting people to Rotary that have never been attracted before. One of the keys to happiness is actually asking yourself, what am I passionate about? What would I love to do every day? And then not being afraid to chase after that.